What is up, guys? It's Adam from ZFG Racing. Today I'm excited to talk to you guys about a little install project we had going on at Nostrum High Performance. The boys over at Nostrum were doing a Stage X install on Ryan C's 2026 Explorer that has a basically full bolt-on setup. So he's got CVF downpipes, thermal 3-inch exhaust, CVF hot and cold side charge pipes. He's got a CT fab, intake, and a Whipple intercooler. He's got all the good stuff, all the right stuff on that car. He hit me up a long time ago, probably about 3-4 months ago now, and wanted to go full E85, wasn't really interested in mixing fuels. He also wanted to future-proof the setup, so rather than doing just a Nostrum Stage 2, he wanted to do the Stage X, which is good for basically everything. There's been some rumors going around the internet. There's a particular company in person that said, hey, Stage X is not compatible with the 25 and 26 Explorer ST. That's not the case. We started installing Nostrum products on the 25 and 26 ST pretty much as soon as they were unlocked. Thanks to our boys over at AWHP Tuners, you know, they're always keeping us up to date on all of the parameters that we need to be able to pull off these awesome tunes. The guys over at Nostrum installed the injectors earlier this week, fired the car up, drove it around on 93 octane, zero issues. We didn't have to make any changes to the data that we already had. That's compatible with pretty much everything that we do. You know, there's slightly different versions, whether it be the Ranger Raptor, the Bronco Raptor, or the Explorer. This is the MG1 family of ECUs, so it's going to be similar, more similar ECU-wise to the Bronco and the Ranger than the previous generation of Explorer. So anyway, that really kind of covers that. We can go ahead and we can show some videos of it on the dyno. Alright, so as you can see and hear, that thing sounds fantastic. Again, the boys over at Nostrum are always super helpful when it comes to getting stuff on the dyno and getting stuff installed. If you guys didn't know, they do installs of not only their products, but they'll actually do full builds for you if you want them to. But they do great work. Got nothing but good things to say about the guys at Nostrum. So let's get to the results. So on 93 octane, what we did is we ran our performance tune first. That performance tune netted us 457 horsepower and 488 foot-pounds of torque. So on the race tune, 472 horsepower and 527 foot-pounds. And this is a good time to talk about what is the difference between a performance and a race tune. Should I only get a performance tune or should I get a race tune? The performance tune makes less horsepower than the race tune. The way I do them is different. So the performance tune is going to be locked in to this torque and this horsepower. It is going to hold this kind of irregardless of what you do for bolt-ons. Now, you will do bolt-ons, you will still gain, but it's not as open-ended as a race tune is. So as you do more bolt-ons, the gap between the performance tune and the race tune is actually going to get larger. The performance tune is going to tend to hang out and stay at the same power level, and the race tune is really going to, you know, just start increasing. And the reason I do this is because not everybody wants a race tune. I understand that. Not everybody wants to push the car. So we offer tow tunes, we offer daily driver tunes, and those are really just words to kind of define the different power levels, and that goes for DMS as well. Obviously, if you don't know, DMS is our drive mode specific tuning, where we allow you to assign the power levels to each drive mode. It's just there. You click the wheel over and it's just there. And that is coming, guys. That is coming to 25 and 26 eventually. I'm sorry that it's taking so long, but I can promise you that it is going to come and it is going to be better. We cleared that all up. So let's flip over back to this and we're back to the race tune. So on the race tune, we didn't lean on it super hard because the goal of this car isn't 93 octane, but we still came up with 472 horsepower and 527 foot-pounds. Great numbers for 93 octane. Again, these cars typically make on Nostrum's dyno about 330 to 340 horsepower in their stock configuration with a stock tune on it. So that's 130 horsepower plus right there, give or take, right? And one other thing that I wanted to point out is we are on an SAE correction factor. So I do have a little bit of a grind about correction factors on dynos, and that has a lot to do with people don't really understand what they are or how they work. They just see a dyno number and they take that as the real number, right? The real number that your vehicle made on the dyno that day is what is called an uncorrected number. That's the number that the dyno calculated the horsepower to be. Anything that has a correction factor applied to it is a theoretical number that the car could make, not that it would make. So at Nostrum, since we're at sea level and it's summer, so it's a little bit warm, but it's not crazy hot down here, our correction factors there are typically low. These dynos, all of the correction factors are 1.02 to 1.03. The reason why I didn't use standard is because it was a little warmer today and the correction factors were a little higher than I would typically like to see. So I just went back to SAE numbers because they're more realistic. They're more of a reasonable goal for people to have. So there's other tuners out there that they'll do their dynos to no fault of their own, really, but they're just at different altitudes. They're at high altitudes, high temperatures, and they will post some really great looking numbers with standard correction factor or even an SAE correction factor. The issue is what can happen, especially on these turbo cars, is that can set unrealistic expectations. There's other contributing factors that aren't taken in effect by that correction factor. That correction factor is only looking at the barometric pressure and the temperature for the most part, and it's using that to correct the horsepower to what it could make at sea level in 72-degree air, or depending on which correction factor you are, they use different basis for, you know, their ideal atmospheres, right? Works really great on naturally aspirated engines because it is translatable from a higher altitude to a lower altitude because we know those parameters. But on a turbo car, there's other things that come into effect, like compressor maps and inlet pressures and all that good stuff. And not to mention things like fuel system capacity or, you know, some other outlying factor like a transmission. You make 650 foot-pounds on an Explorer ST stock transmission at, you know, some altitude like 5,000 feet, give or take, right? Your correction factor is like 1.15. That means you really only made 600 horsepower or 600 foot-pounds times 0.85%. So you only made 550 foot-pounds. But we know the stock transmissions in these cars can't hold 650 foot-pounds. But you guys should pay attention to where the dyno was done and what conditions it was done at, and just ask. You know, if you ask me what my correction factor is on any of the dyno charts that I post, as I have that information, I will give it to you, because honestly, when we're building cars, we want to have realistic expectations and we want to manage those expectations. Enough of that rant. We beat that subject to death. I just wanted to cover that in case anybody was wondering why I'm posting SAE numbers this time versus standard numbers, which I normally post. So let's get over to the good news. And this is surprising to me. I did not think that 25, 26 Explorers would make this amount of power on stock turbos on E85. What I'm going to show you first is the final numbers. And again, I was not expecting this. So we ended up with 611 horsepower and 590 foot-pounds of torque, which is just absolutely crazy and impressive for this. I was not expecting to get this far on these turbos, like I said. But as you can see in this dyno chart, I did limit it early on and kept it around that 550 foot-pound mark where we want to be. And then I let it creep up as we get further down in the power band. The reason for this is it's really hard on the transmission to take that torque in kind of a hit, if that makes sense. So doing it, delaying it a little bit longer, doing it up a little bit higher, where the transmission pressures are higher, there's more pressure available because the transmission's spinning faster, the pump's spinning faster. It's more likely to hold more torque up here. But this definitely, 590 foot-pounds is definitely pushing it on a stock transmission. There's no doubt about that. Ryan's already talking about building his transmission. But man, this thing made power. And I can really contribute it mostly data-wise after I've had some time to look at it. It really is just airflow. I mean, it has good air coming in, good air going out. So in all honesty, that's, the turbos didn't have to work as hard and they just had a better result. So I am thoroughly impressed with this. Again, so let's flip over to this. So what we did after we got all of the numbers that we wanted is we went back and we stepped through all of the power levels that we offer. Because we haven't done this on a 25 or 26 yet in terms of doing it with E85, I should say. So what I got for you guys here is I got a tow tune, a daily driver tune, a performance tune, and a race tune. So tow tune, pretty generic. It's actually a little more sporty than I typically make the tow tunes, but hey, it's E85, so we're good to go. So that came in at 431, 439 foot-pounds. Again, that's going to be for pulling your trailers. That's going to be for pulling the rated capacity of your vehicle. Can you tow on a daily driver or a performance tune? The answer is yes, but you have to be smart about it. Should you? No, you should buy a tow tune. The reason that you don't want to tow on a performance or like a race tune is it builds a lot of extra heat and it's just not great for the exhaust system. It's not great for the turbos because you are just building extra heat, whereas the tow tune really has that extra fuel in it to keep everything cool under sustained high loads, which you will see when you're towing. If you've never towed with an EcoBoost before, you probably don't know this, but if you look at your boost gauge when you're towing with an EcoBoost on the highway, you're in boost almost all the time. So that extra fueling needs to kick in and it needs to cool everything down to be able to sustain that. So that's why we do tow tunes. Daily driver tune, great, made 476 horsepower, 483 foot-pounds. There's not many people that buy the daily driver power level. There's a lot of people that use it with the DMS tune. This performance tune on E85, still really great numbers. 546, 550 foot-pounds. You notice that 550 foot-pounds number is significant. This is the tune that he plans to run until he builds the transmission. And then again, the race tune is thrown in there just to have a complete comparison. So again, super impressed with the Nostrum guys and the product that they offer. It's flawless as always. We've never really had any issues being able to tune their products on any platform that we've tried to use them on. So I'm super satisfied with those guys and I'm really pumped about these results. To my knowledge, this is the only 25, 26 Explorer that has made it over 600 horsepower, period. And again, this is 600 horsepower on the stock turbos. So I'm super pumped about that. I'm really excited to see how it performs at the track. And I'm excited to see what else Ryan does to this because he does want to do turbos. There was a reason he went with the Stage X fuel system. Now there's not a lot of good options yet, but we're going to get to that in a different video. So until then, you guys have a great night and stay tuned.